Good afternoon, everyone. Because the chair and the vice chair of the committee of the Heritage Committee are not here today, we're gonna quickly do an election of the chair for today's meeting. And at this point, I'm gonna ask for nominations if anybody wants to chair today's meeting. I see Member Capoli. If there's no objections from any member of the committee, I will pass it on to Member Capoli to chair today's meeting. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Welcome. This meeting is now called to order. The roll has been taken. As far as rules and procedures go, this meeting is held in a hybrid format in accordance with Article 18 of the city's procedure bylaw. Staff and delegates participating virtually are reminded to keep their video and microphones off until requested by the chair or members of the committee. All cameras for virtual committee members shall remain on to ensure quorum. All members of the committee will vote by a physical show of hands. Please leave your hand raised until the chair has determined the result of the vote. In the event a connection or service disruption occurs that affects quorum, we may recess the meeting for up to 15 minutes to regain quorum. If quorum is not achieved, the meeting will be adjourned. At this time, I'll ask, are there any declarations or conflicts of interest for any of the items listed on the agenda? Seeing none. And there are no presentations or delegations. We will move on to our items for consideration. Item 4.1. So I believe Laura Walter is a registered delegate. She's here to answer questions, not necessarily a presentation, correct? So I guess we'll move on to, are there any questions? And no, so what's staff presentation? I'm winging it right now. Am I going straight to staff presentation? I will now call upon staff to make a presentation. As a reminder, you have 10 minutes inclusive of questions.
So we should just clarify. So the items right now that are before committee are private heritage studies for two block plans in the north end of the city on Power Line Road. So these types of studies traditionally don't have staff presentations. So again, Laura Walter is here from, I believe, Stantec to answer questions. If any members of the committee had read the studies and had questions for Laura, this would be an opportunity to ask those.
Perfect. Well then, do I have any questions of either staff or the delegation? Raise hands. Nothing? Can I have a mover and a seconder on the motion? Seconder. Adam, thank you. Okay, so I guess we have the report titled Cultural Heritage Evaluation Report for the Powerline East Block Plan be received. And any comments on this particular? No. Quiet tonight. Okay, good. So there are no comments to register. And so that's it. Okay, so no discussions for staff, no questions for staff. We're all straightforward. All those in favor? Presentation as it is received. Okay. Opposed? That's passed. Thank you. That was easy. Item 4.2, similarly, Powerline Central Block Plan. Are there any questions or requests from the committee to see the staff presentation regarding this item? No. Okay. I'm going to skip over your city staff planning questions then. And may I please have a mover and a seconder on the motion? Councillor Sullivan and William. All right, but that's the report that 2024-516 titled Cultural Heritage Evaluation Report for the Powerline Central Block be received. Any discussions or questions for staff? No. Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Passed. Carried. Okay. This one. Yeah. 4.3 proposed amendments to Heritage Designation Bylaw 153-81 for 34 Myrtleville Drive, which is the museum and farmstead. Are there any questions from the committee to see the staff presentation regarding this item? Seeing none. May I please have a mover and a seconder? Is there any discussion at all? See, without Nathan here. Good job. It was a good report, though. May I please have a mover and a seconder on this motion? Sullivan and Sandra, thank you. So we see that report 2023-207, proposed amendments to the Heritage Designation Bylaw, 153-81 for 34 Myrtleville Drive be received. And do we have any comments or any discussion whatsoever at this time? Seeing none. All those in favor? And opposed? Seeing none, carried. Moving on to item 4.4, proposed alteration to 164 Brant Ave, a property designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act application. I will now call upon city staff to make a presentation, and as a reminder, you will have 10 minutes inclusive of questions.
Thank you, Chair. I will share my screen, and this item, say for the committee members, on your agenda package, you see a report that recommends permit be denied. So this staff presentation, because there was a memo shared, we thought it best where other ones have optional presentations now. This one we would make a point of going through a staff presentation to clarify why recommendation before he was changing. So then just for a quick background, the subject property is within the Brant Avenue Heritage Conservation District. It's between, it's on the southwest side of Brant Avenue between the two lakes of Lorne Crescent. So the applicant has an existing business sign. You can see it on the key photo there. That was the prior sign. It was made of wood. I think even in that photo, part of the sign, if you were to look closely and look in the report, the where the number was already taken off the sign either through deterioration or some form of vandalism, but the sign has been deteriorating for some time. The owner actually was able to dig around the post of the sign and found it wasn't even in any sort of firm footing anymore. So what the owner had done is reached out to a new sign company. The prior manufacturer, he has retired. He couldn't get someone in the short turnaround to make a new sign for him out of wood. He went to the new company, and originally they proposed a one post sign with a simple box base. It was made out of aluminum, so it met the material requirements. It complied with size and setback. Everything was noted to the applicant, and he revised it to comply with other requirements. But the one outstanding feature was the base, the post. The reasons cited to staff and in multiple calls and emails was the sign company was concerned that there was a footing for that original wooden sign. They didn't know how big it would have been, and they were concerned that if they fully excavated that footing, it might create some unstable ground, and then in a few years, the new sign starts to settle a little bit or lean. And there was also some irrigation in the lawns. They didn't want to move the sign too much because it might impact the irrigation system. Having spoken with the owner, he decided to go out and double check with a trowel. He said it took about 4 minutes. He found out there actually wasn't any concrete footing for this existing wooden sign. So where staff were originally recommending the permit be denied, at face value denied, but as we noted in the report, defer it one cycle to allow the applicant time to consider revisions. When he discovered that there was no concrete footing, that the sign could go with a two-post design, it could fit in the existing space. He confirmed that this revised design is what he would like to go with. So the proposed design, it still retains a clear, legible logo, but it reverts to the two-post style. He did revise the placement of the address to be in a separate, smaller sign band. It allows that logo to be changed in future if necessary, but the sign structure could be reused. So the sign already met all our requirements in the bylaw for size, for sign area, for setbacks. There's no internal illumination or illumination for the sign. The only matter was the design of the base being a one post boxy base. That's been revised now, so staff are instead recommending that the original report be received, the update memorandum be received, and contrary to what we originally recommended, we do recommend now that heritage permit application HA 1124 be approved. And you'll notice in the usual format of the language there, we have revised it to the details described in the memorandum. So that is what design is clearly being approved by committee. That concludes my staff presentation on this permit. I'm happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Any member committee have a question for staff?
Are there any color qualifications or whatever for a sign on Brantford?
Nothing explicit that says, you know, signs should be one of like these 5 colors. Historic colors are recommended, but it is a simple, like black and white are colors that span eras. They are complementary. There were just sort of call outs circa the 1980s of color lines, let's say offered by Benjamin Moore, but those aren't necessarily current. And they weren't enumerated in the actual district study. It just says historic color palettes like these are encouraged. But again, it's not a requirement. The colors are sympathetic. Again, we don't worry about business logos either, right? We're not going to say, oh, you can't have it because your logo is neon blue and that's not a historic color. But again, this sign is compatible with the district. They revised it to comply with all the guidelines now, not just the yes, no requirements. So we're recommending approval. So
the base, the 2-post base is black?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
In the sign, I don't even know what it's called. The bylaw for the sign, does it specify 2 posts that it came?
It does. It does. So there are regulations. Those are the ones that are yes, no. Your sign shall be a maximum size, or it shall not be internally illuminated. And then there are guidelines like the 2-post sign is encouraged. If you can't do a 2-post ground sign and you do a fascia sign, then how you do that, not disfiguring the building, not covering a heritage attribute, those are the guidelines. And then colors are again a guideline, not a requirement.
So it couldn't be updated to say that if you're in a conservation area, it has to be a 2-post, and we don't have to go through this every time a sign comes in that wants to be a 1-post.
Well, and so the idea is if they don't comply with the guidelines, the committee has historically deferred those and said you should revise your sign to conform to the guidelines. If someone was if he had replaced the existing sign, that was the plan, he would not have needed a heritage permit because effectively the situation isn't changing, and that was communicated early on. But this is a brand new sign, brand new foundation. So that does trigger the need for a heritage permit and a new sign permit through building.
And that's the same thing too. We have had issues before where we have declined signs and denied them, and they've had to go back to the drawing board, revise them, and then come back.
Because they put in for a 1-post instead of a 2-post.
Exactly, yeah.
If it's specified in there saying that has to be a 2-post, it would save them money to go back to the drawing board.
And we flagged that. And so this owner, we did have discussions with the applicant. It was an inquiry that came in through our call center. And I actually sent that initial email back saying, you know, here's the sign bylaw, note the guidelines here, based on what you're showing, you know, this is an issue. And I did flag prior permits where, again, there was some back and forth between the applicant and me and their sign company. And it was the sign company's concerns about digging up too much of the lawn, not knowing where the foundations were. That's why he ultimately came up. Well, the sign company's saying they want the 1-post and it'll work in this location. You know, they install sign, like that was kind of the rationale. He didn't want to push too far because he felt, you know, they do install signs all the time. They know what they're doing. Well, we pushed back and now we have a sign that complies with all the guidelines. We haven't had to defer it. That's why we're recommending approval now on the first round.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you. Is there any more discussion or questions? Sure.
It's just that the revisions that have been made with the 2-post look a lot more in keeping with the heritage district than what was originally proposed with the large massing. So it's a much better sign.
Okay, do I have a mover and a seconder for the motion, please? Counselor Stanmore, Dan? All right, the report 2024-607 be received. The report 2024-607 regarding the permit be received, and that it be approved. Any discussions on the motion? Okay, I have a vote in favor. Opposed? That's passed. Thank you. Yeah, it's nice to see when they actually listen to. All right, 4.5, proposed alteration to 7 Egerton, a proposed designation under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, application H12-24. Are there any requests from the committee to see the staff presentation regarding this item? No. Yes?
We don't get to see the staff report.
Do you want to see the staff report?
I do.
All right. We will see the staff report. You have 10 minutes, please.
Yeah, I want to see it.
Through the chair, it's just to clarify,
Yes.
if any committee member at any time wants to see the staff presentation,
Of course.
it is sometimes a little bit redundant or a summary of the report. But if anybody wants to see it, they can request it at the beginning of the item.
Absolutely. Perfect. All right.
We thought with more items on the agenda, the amendment, the tax
No.
increment grants, you may not want to see the permit presentation. That's
Fair
all.
enough. That's great. Thank you. You're up.
So I will just share my screen. Again, this is just a summary presentation for HA 1224 for 7 Egerton Street. Members may recall this property that the owner was in earlier this year for permits for their backyard, for a pool and new or garage renovation. So this is an individually designated property on Egerton Street. The work in question in this case is replacement of a front door. So easier to see, I think, in the staff report than on the screen. I do apologize there, but the existing door is wooden. It is showing signs of warping within the frame. There is a light gap. We showed a picture of that in the staff report. And here you can see areas where cracks and peeling is happening on the inside as well as the outside of the door for moisture. The owner has been keeping up and touching up the door every year with a fresh coat of paint. But no matter what, it seems that water is making its way in and the door continues to warp from the elements. You see in the submission materials, the applicant did try to contact Fletcher Construction to do a repair to the door, to clean it, remove any deteriorating sections of wood, repair that, and repaint, seal, install the door again. Unfortunately, they have declined to take on the work. The application came in September. The applicant was hoping to take advantage of the grant program, but when Fletcher Construction declined to take on the work with the winter coming, they were concerned that there would be issues. And as we showed in the report, with that daylight gap that you might see rain, sleet, snow get into the frame now that there are gaps, and that would cause further damage to build up over the winter. Things that may not be big right now, but will certainly at a risk of contributing to issues down the road. So the backup plan was to go with an off-the-shelf door in the right size, color to sort of replicate the current feel of the property. They are proposing, it is a steel door. It speaks to a transom light because they knew they had to fit that opening. We have talked to the applicant. They revised the quote to more clearly speak to removing that exterior trim between the door and transom window and reinstalling it where able.
Councillor Sullivan, you raised a hand. Sorry about that.
Really.
Thank you. No, I can wait till he's done his presentation.
Okay.
So that was one of the concerns the staff flagged was, we do see the quotes that were originally provided. Had some discussions to clarify the new doors were not subject to the grant program, but given They did want to go with Fletcher Construction. Fletcher Construction backed out of taking on the work. And with the winter coming, they wanted to move ahead with the door replacement. This is something, while not always the preferred course, it's about now when you are introducing new work, is it compatible? So looking at the standards and guidelines. Now, this is not, let's say, a take on a mid-century modern design, something that clashes with the era of the building. This is a sympathetic door. It is off the shelf, but it will respect the character of the house. And the contractor was made aware that, I spoke to them on the phone and said, the committee may have concerns if they see a full unit replacement and there's no account for some of that existing wood trim, that character features of the house. So the owner went back and talked to the supplier and said, no, the Heritage Committee, I think, would like to see us try to retain the trim. I think, they're saying we're able to couch that. They didn't have small wire cut nails back in the day. They had full-size nails. They may take the trim off, and just due to age, maybe there was deterioration inside that was covered up by paint, like we saw, with a wood porch, I think last September. And the whole porch had to be removed. So they will be trying to save that trim, but I think they're just trying to couch it until they start removing it and making it fit. They can't be sure until they get in there and do the work that the trim is sound, that wood board is sound. But nonetheless, they're going for a sympathetic look to the building. Staff are recommending that this heritage permit be approved. So that concludes my presentation. I know Councillor Sullivan has his hand up, so happy to answer any questions of the committee.
Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through to you to staff. Have we considered having this door temporarily replaced and the door repaired off-site and brought back once it's repaired?
That is something I talked to the applicant about. But given the amount of work required, they felt with winter coming, they just want to go with the replacement, that they don't want to worry about every year after the fact. It was something we discussed in September when they were talking about going with the grant.
Okay, because if they were to fix it properly, it's not something she'd have to worry about annually. It'd be fixed properly. So that
Yes,
doesn't
yeah, we
really seem
understand
like a
that.
very valid reason. So when we get to the comments, I'd like that to be put in the comments.
Why is it not eligible for the grant?
It-
Because
so
it's not the original?
Correct. So
Okay.
the door that is there would have been eligible, and we had expected that application to come in. It was submitted as a grant application, but once the repair contractor backed out, they went with the backup plan, which was a brand new door.
I'm just curious, did you see any quotes for
Yeah.
what the original repair would have been? for the
Yes, so
door?
that should be there in the submission material. There's a letter,
No, not for the new door, for the
Yes.
where the repair used to be? Oh, okay, all right, sorry.
Yeah, so the letter that was provided with the grant
Okay,
spoke to the original quote and the brand new replacement. So we included that original quote, and it does show the context.
so much. Oh, okay. See that. All right.
Yeah. no,
Um,
I did see that.
Anyway, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I did see that one. Anyone else? Yes, Dan.
I guess more of a comment.
Mhm.
I think that the new door does not really fit the house at all. Just the design of it compared to what was there. I think that the amount that is on that quote, either to restore the door or to the amount that they're gonna put in to buy that new door could be spent a little more wisely on restoring that door. I think they could install a smaller pre-hung steel door in there, and like he said, they could send it off-site to get it fixed properly. I'm totally against it.
I also think multiple quotes could be a good idea because that is quite a price to it. And I agree that the steel door doesn't have the characteristics either.
Anyone else online? Sandra? I would have to concur with you guys. Like, it doesn't have any windows there's no architectural detailing or anything like that. It's just a standard straightforward steel door.
That's one of the most unique doors I've seen on a
Was there,
heritage property.
was there any consideration?
Also, through the
For
chair,
that?
looking at that door, and we talked about it a bit in the report, we have had some other grants for smaller cottages.
Mhm.
Similar in style to this one. I haven't seen this style door. There's a few things about this door that makes me think it may not be original to the house. I can't say for sure,
Okay.
but we often see, windows and shutters are called out in designation bylaws. Original features are called out where they're known. And in
Yeah.
this bylaw, it speaks to the pattern of the original windows. It speaks to the shutters. It speaks to the transom window itself,
Mhm.
but there's no mention of the door. And so that's why we're a bit more comfortable in this case supporting the replacement, because it is still simple. Is it the most unique option? No, but it is sympathetic to the building. I have seen in some of our other grants, the doors have a different look. The round windows, again, look like they might better suit a rounded opening. If you think more like Lansdowne Park, I think I see the report, I might get the streets wrong now. I think it's Lincolnshire and
Lincoln.
Devonshire.
Yeah.
They have that sort of English cottage look with the round door opening. And then sometimes doors are, rectangular behind that. Sometimes they're designed to fit and it's a true round opening. So because this door wasn't called out as a clear original feature, I suspect there might have been some more information at play between the owner when the city designated the property, which is not the current owner.
So perhaps this wasn't the original heritage door.
It's
and this was something
possible.
that was added as a character feature later on.
Yes, it's possible. They did try to go with the wood door because of the historic property, but again, I don't see a clear hint, and I have seen it in other bylaws here in the city where those features are spelled out.
Is the transom and the whole jam itself part of the retrofitting? So would it lose all that molding as well?
So that's what we talk about when we say in the code, it says that wood trim they will try and salvage and
Okay.
reuse it. It is a complete system. Maybe the supplier is concerned that this door wouldn't fit the opening, or the opening might have also warped. And they want to go with something they know will seal properly. But I did talk to them. They did add that line about the wood trim being reused to the quote. So that is part of the approval that we want for them to reuse that trim.
Have they looked at getting a new steel door with a glass paint in it that represents that a little bit?
Originally, they considered some options. Ultimately, this is the door they wanted to go with now that they are replacing it outright.
Any other questions for staff?
If it shares
Sure.
for clarity then, so
Yeah.
again, committee has approval and staff have approval or delegated authority to approve permits.
Right.
But denials end up going to council, so depending on how the vote goes, if there is a denial vote, there will be a report placed on committee of the whole. I think that would be by the city clerk. And then the matter will go to council in the November cycle. Just for
Thank you.
knowledge sake, because we
Yeah.
don't deny a lot of permits.
No.
So that it's a different process.
Right. All right, thank you for that clarification. Can I have a mover and a seconder for this motion? Let's get on the table. Greg, thank you. Seconder? Dan, thank you. Any discussion besides what we just discussed? And are those comments from Councillor Sullivan?
Through the chair, if I can confirm with Councillor Sullivan, we can add an additional clause to basically recommend or include in future reports, the normal wording that we normally have, that the following comments of the Brantford Heritage Committee be included in staff future report to Committee of the Whole Planning and Administration. And the comment from you, if I can confirm, the Brantford Heritage Committee recommends the owner to place a temporary door to allow the existing door to be repaired and placed back in the building.
That would be correct.
Perfect, thank you.
The motion on the table right now is for the application to be approved. Everybody's clear on that?
Approved with the comment.
With the comments, right, of course. Any questions beyond that? Okay. Everybody Do we have a motion to, I'm lost now. Everybody in favor of this application? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and opposed? 2, 3. It's carried. Thank you. Wait, did I get you? I got you right. Item 4.6, proposed alteration to 12 Hillcrest Ave, proposed designated under Part 4 of the Heritage Act, application HA 13-24. Are we doing a staff presentation?
Oh, yes,
Members want
please.
Are there any
All right.
requests from the committee to see the staff presentation regarding this item? Oh, yes, okay, yes, you're up.
All right. All right. Through you, Chair.
Keeping you busy today.
Right, so this is the, yep, okay, everyone can see it. This is the staff presentation for Heritage Permit HA 1324, 12 Hillcrest Avenue. This property is on the northeast side of Hillcrest Avenue. If you were to drive by today, I will let the committee members know you would not see the house shown in the picture. There is sort of a screen of evergreens in the front. The applicant was nice enough to provide this picture of their property. It's a rather it's a smaller wood cottage, board and batten clad, but with a sort of a field or rubble stone chimney. And then a later addition, which is not part of the designation. It is individually designated. So the proposal before the committee here is masonry repairs. There will be exterior repairs to the stone chimney. And then separately, there will be some investigative work and ultimately a repointing done in the basement, which has a brick foundation. So the part of the basement is partially finished. There's some wood cladding on the walls, and in the lower of the two pictures, it seems the soil has been visibly sort of seeping through and under some of the paneling. So the contractor is going to remove the wall paneling to just confirm the full extent of repair needed. And then the upper picture, this is an interior load-bearing wall, so it's not clad, but it will be repointed as well. I know in our last committee meeting, a certain member asked about pre-bag versus, hand mixed mortar. The quote that was provided for this, I think the mason specified they would mix the mortar by parts on site to a type N consistency. We're happy to share that just, we are okay with the pre-bag, pre-mixed mortar that is guaranteed to those specifications as well. I think they just wanted to show a level of care and understanding of the types of mortar used back in the day. But ultimately, that is quite a defining chimney in the front, and we do want to make sure that the foundation will last and will support the house. Staff are recommending that this permit be approved. I believe also there was there's a proposal to then waterproof the exterior, or not the exterior, the inside foundation walls once the wall cladding is removed, just to make sure that moisture isn't actually coming into the building via the foundation. And that would, in future, possibly contribute to, black mold or issues like that. So they do want to seal off the foundation from the inside so moisture won't pass through. So based on the review, staff feel that this heritage permit again should staff recommend approval.
Are there any questions of the staff? Committee member? I have one question. Oh, sorry, who's that? Oh, Councilor Sullivan?
Just out of curiosity, has the applicant applied for any of the grants for the work they're about to do?
Through the chair, yes, there's a grant application in.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
That grant, it doesn't have to come to us.
No, it is still below the threshold.
Okay, yeah. And then I was gonna ask too, like, just 'cause I'm not familiar with it, when they're waterproofing that doesn't affect the, you don't see it very often anyway. Like, it's been, 150 years that house has been standing there without any waterproofing on the inside. That won't deteriorate anything or trap anything? No? I know it protects the
Yeah,
inside,
what
but
they've given us the paperwork for shows it is meant for, or it does work on masonry.
Okay.
Through the grant, we're going to ask them just to confirm the company is comfortable with it being used on 100-year-old brick.
right, yeah,
But for the purposes of the heritage permit, the timeline it was submitted and statutory timelines,
Yeah.
we did want to get the permit before the.
just doing this, okay. Okay.
Is waterproofing part of this application on the inside? Can we-
Because it is foundation work, yes, because any water coming into the building creates that potential to be a problem in the future. Whether it's, just moisture and black mold, or if it's leak into the foundation and then further eroding of the mortar or brick, or letting animals in if they try to burrow. I've seen that around some houses' foundations. So because the foundation work, it's trying to keep the foundation area dry,
Mhm.
then yes. But it's contingent on them actually repointing and fixing all the deterioration first.
But you said that they're putting an interior weeping system in on the inside,
No, it's a waterproof coating,
on the
so the moisture
inside,
doesn't come into the house proper.
on the inside.
Yes.
So the water's still coming in, but it's being blocked by
Well,
the.
it's proactive. They're going to investigate why the dirt is coming. There's dirt seeping into the basement from somewhere, and that's what they're going to be investigating. They want it then waterproof.
Are there any best practices or any case studies on this age of a house with
That's
sealing off the interior?
That's why we're gonna have the questions as part of the grant in order to get that funding. But again, we're up against legislative deadlines, so I wanted to get the permit to the committee. But they are aware of the grant program, and we have those opportunities to ask them and get the company to confirm they're comfortable with it.
Oh, just-
And if they don't go with it, then it saves the applicant some
Yeah.
money.
It just feels like even with the grant money that the city is putting into it, we're almost spending money to damage the house rather than doing it proper by digging it up on the outside to seal it from the water coming in.
Yeah, unfortunately, also right now, the applicant is actually on a trip in Scotland, so we couldn't have them talk to their mason right
No,
now.
it's-
But again, through that grant, that is something we'll be looking
It's on
for.
the checklist.
It is, again, because yes, if we see that, oh, no, we wouldn't warrant this material on a brick foundation, then simply through the grant, we can say, we're not gonna fund that because the company has noted this issue.
Mhm.
That doesn't stop them from moving on with the masonry repairs and ensuring
Oh,
pointing
no, for
work.
sure. No, that.
So that's why the permit is needed for the masonry repairs. That's the delegated
Oh,
authority.
yeah.
But we are gonna keep working with the applicant through that grant to make sure that, that everything is appropriate for the property.
One other thing, just by that one photo, I can tell that it's not just a brick foundation, it's also a brick and rubble. So there's more to it than just purging or interior weeping system of a brick wall. It's,
The brick wall, that is again, an interior wall. There's no, there are other foundation walls on the other side of it.
Okay.
So that's like one side of the basement that's unfinished. That's where they were noticing the dirt coming in. So that's where they're focusing the work on at this time. They haven't had any issues with water or dirt or anything else. Sort of basically behind that photo I took. So they're focusing on where they're seeing the issues, but they are monitoring the whole basement.
Thank you. All right, can I have a mover and a seconder for this motion? Sure, Counselor Sandlin, or Sullivan, and Counselor Sandlin, you got them both, there you go. It's got to get different names, that's all there is to it. Any discussion on the motion? No, that's it, okay. All those in favor, please. And opposed? Seeing none, carried. And item 4.7, adopt reuse incentives for designated heritage properties. Are there any requests from the committee to see the staff presentation regarding this item? Dan? Adam, we'll put Adam on.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Just to clarify, Chair, there's no actual presentation to this item. If you saw the report, there are a lot of words in there and not a lot of pictures, but we can talk about the appendix and I can put up one of the tables. It's
Yeah.
more an overview, yeah. So And this has been an item that has kind of cycling through or different phases, and this is one of the phases following the register project having to be sort of re-envisioned. So this item is looking at a grant that could help encourage new development or redevelopment to adaptively reuse our designated properties or historic properties that would then be designated. And right now we have two, what they're called community improvement plans. It's a tool under the Planning Act that basically allows a municipality to set out some goals for a new vision for an area, or, well, I guess a vision. It could include repair and redevelopment. But that program allows the creation of a grant. Normally, municipalities can't give out grants to private enterprise. It's called bonusing, and we're prevented from doing that. Community improvement plans or CIPs, it's one of the ways we do that. So we have two, the downtown CIP, the Grayfield CIP, that set out sort of a vision that aligns with our official plan. We want to see high quality, transformative redevelopment that, you know, brings new residents into our downtown, new residents and jobs, commercial spaces to certain Grayfield corridors. Both of those community improvement plans have what's called a tax increment grant. What that says is, if you redevelop the property and that results in increased taxes and assessment value for the property, taxes for the city, and that is above a certain dollar value, I think $10,000, you can get a grant that is equivalent to that difference in taxes. So if your taxes start here, and then because of what you've done, you know, the taxes have moved up, that difference, you get part of that back, and there's a sliding scale. So I'll just put up the chart one from the report. So this is the current structure of our tax increment grants in the city. Again, the 0 to 100 or 120 that you're seeing, that's the difference from the prior taxes to the post redevelopment taxes. So that baseline, if we were collecting taxes of $5,000 on the property, the city would keep $5,000, and then 80% of the increase, if it was a market rate development, would be refunded for the first 5 years. We also have two streams that encourage affordable housing. That's the purple and the blue bars. So there's a slightly higher refund if you have a certain portion affordable housing with an agreement with the city. Then you would get, for the first 5 years, 90% of your increased taxes refunded, and it phases out. And if it was deeply affordable, or in this case, 60%, 10% of units are 60% of the average market rent. So 40% are cheaper than the average market going rate. And then another 10%, or only 80% of the average rate for the city, you could get your full increase refunded for 10 years. That's the existing system. It doesn't specify heritage or not. It is one, downtown is just for the downtown urban growth center. Grayfields could be applied throughout the city, but it expects to see mixed use property. So a reason for this is going to be something like a property like One Wellington or a Market Street South and Erie Avenue, places where we've seen properties sit vacant or underutilized. If you're in our corridors like Colburn Street East, the former Canadian Tire site has started to get redeveloped, but it has sat vacant for quite some time. So these programs are about encouraging that reuse instead of properties sitting vacant. The challenge with the existing property doesn't prevent someone from adaptively reusing a designated building or a historic building, but some developers who may not be familiar with adaptive reuse projects prefer to see a blank slate. So what this is about doing is adding an enhancement to our tax increment grants that would kick in if you were adaptively reusing a designated heritage property, or your property would still qualify for designation after redevelopment. So when we say adaptive reuse, we spelled out like a spectrum of approaches, right? There's just full conversion and restoration. Maybe you don't need to change the building, but you'd like to restore it. And if that increases the value sufficiently, that could be one approach. the adaptive, or I call it the retention and addition approach. You know, we looked at the appendices, the different examples of projects. So there's, you know, City Hall is one approach that's maybe a bit more, at first glance, it looks like the federal government retained the front portion of the building and then added an addition onto the back, and they did, but they did a lot of interior renovations back when they built the addition. But this is, again, the city wouldn't get tax funding for its own properties, but the appendix shows examples of these projects. This is the kind of goal of the program that we may not see if it's, I can build a clean slate in a brand new building, or I can adaptively reuse something. We do have some examples of adaptive reuse. So some on Brant Avenue, 88 Brant Avenue, 104 Brant Avenue. Again, brand homes that were repurposed, one into a funeral home, one retirement dwelling, with the home retained and the retirement home built onto the back as well and expanded. So there's some retention. If you go onto their websites, you will see some of the interior photos they have available. And you see some of that original trim staircases are actually still there. I think with the retirement home, there's a lunchroom or a break room, a private, like a game parlor, just a space, but it has all its original interior trim. The picture rails are there, the ornate
It's like
wall
the
paneling.
churches when they redo the loft apartments. and stuff
Exactly.
Like that.
We have other ones that they retain the exterior, but they do make some changes. So 65 George Street has retained some of the church's stained glass, but other windows have been replaced with modern windows to account for building code requirements for natural light. And you know, this is an example that is designated. It's in our Victoria Park Square Heritage Conservation District. Another example the committee is familiar with, I think 81 Peel Street, again, historic place of worship. It was converted, but it could have also gone the way that it gets demolished and a new building is put in its place. So again, the examples we provided in the appendix are illustrative. They wouldn't all be adaptive reuse projects that would get funded. It wouldn't work if you have an entity like Laurier, if there's no taxes being paid. Again, the city or levels of government are not eligible for these, but these examples are what we'd like to see. So the focus would be on, again, that either continue, reuse the building, restore it, you build an addition onto the building, you retain the original historic structure, or you do some adaptive reuse. Again, there might be some loss of original features to comply with code. That's, I think what we're saying is like the defining feature of this spectrum, how much of the change is needed to comply with building code. You might use an old mansion as part of a low-rise building, and then that house is the amenity space, which has slightly different requirements than a brand new apartment dwelling unit. It could just be that it's a conversion to office, and that conversion and some work through an addition, maybe that again is just very compatible, increases the value, but the building gets adaptively reused. So we would like to be able to introduce this option when we're having our pre-consultation meetings, when applicants are coming to us and saying, we want to develop this property, what studies are required? It's very easy for me to make the comments. We need a heritage study, and then that will be presented to the Brantford Heritage Committee for comment. And then you will get those comments back. And then we might have comments saying, we have a grant program that will encourage you to redevelop the property, but there's no clear criteria that says you have to adaptively reuse the building. What the enhancement would do is kick in if the building is adaptively reused. These programs are all approved by council on a case-by-case basis. It's possible council might say, we are not comfortable giving you any grant if you don't adaptively reuse, but this may be a transformative project for an area, and the heritage factor, especially if the property is not designated already, may only be one of several things that council is trying to balance. So it is about encouraging and providing a greater benefit for that heritage adaptive reuse. So what we're recommending, and we'll be recommending to council, is that, so if you look at the current phase out, what we would recommend is 1 additional year up front is provided at the maximum rate. So instead of a 10-year program with a phase out, and 5 years at the maximum level, it's 6 years. If you do fully market rate, that's 6 years funding at 80% of the tax increase. If it's partially affordable housing, 90%. If there's a deep affordable component, you get 11 years, a full refund essentially of the increased taxes. With the programs as they are, we don't see too many changes needed. Again, there will be likely heritage impact assessments, conservation plans tied into these types of projects. Those will come to the committee for comments and review. And we are proposing to add the criteria that the property would need to be designated before any grant money flows to the property owner. So that means it needs to meet 2 criteria under the Heritage Act to be designated. At some point, you're going to make too many changes to a property that you can't meet 2 criteria, you can't be designated, you won't bend it. So you can't really do a bait and switch, right? The controls of the Heritage Act and what threshold is now will adds a bit more help. It's one of the few times I would say maybe the province's changes, making it, meet 2 criteria to designate is now actually working in our favor. It'll mean that the development will need to truly do some form of adaptive reuse. So we'll be presenting this to council. But again, the Heritage Committee has an opportunity to provide comments, and we'll take those comments and put them into our report and present them in November.
Great. Does anyone have any questions to staff at this time? Yes, sure, Councilor.
So mine's more of a comment. Do you want me to reserve that till later?
Save that, yeah. Questions?
In memory, the Red Cross, when a developer comes in for a pre-consultation meeting, is it not too late to be putting this on them? Do they not come in with their pictures of what they're gonna tear down, they're gonna build this by that point?
Each pre-con's a bit different. We have had some in the past, like we saw 81 PL, they came in for pre-con, the building is there, they've adaptively reused it. We've had others where they've come in for pre-con and the proposal has actually changed. Sometimes more sympathetic to either the historic structure on the property or, we now also require neighborhood meetings. And sometimes when the proponent goes out, does their neighborhood meeting and finds that the neighborhood is not interested in their proposal. With that heritage building there, it helps us sort of scope the development. We can lean on that with our comments. And when we say, by the way, there is a grant program too, so if you adaptively reuse it, you will get money back for 10 years or 11 years. If you build something brand new, you are paying market rate on everything, and then you're paying brand new taxes on that. So it adds that financial component as well that could encourage that change or encourage a more thorough adaptive reuse than we might otherwise see. They don't have to apply when they do pre-con.
No. It just seems like there seems to be more out-of-town developers coming in that don't know these things about us, that if this goes through, that I guess there needs to be some sort of an educational piece or some sort of a advertising piece to it to say, if you're coming here, this is, if you use our old buildings and we don't have to move the Crystal Cottage because you can build it into something, maybe that would be better than just talking to them when they come in for pre-consultation.
And we do host these plans on these community improvement plans and the grant information on our website. I know our economic development team actually has someone with a heritage background on it. They used to work at a different municipality and I'd be in contact sometimes. They've moved here, so they are well aware of heritage. And we often see them supporting that in their comments as well. But I think, and maybe Alan can speak to this a bit more, we do have some conversations, I think, with the home builders and the BIA on these CIPs in the past.
Yeah, if we do an update like this to the CIP, we'd certainly present that to them so that they're aware. And I would think a lot of the developers who may be coming into the downtown are often looking to see if we have downtown incentives, because it's not uncommon amongst different municipalities in Ontario to have community improvement plans within their downtown. So I think it would be something that some of them would actually be looking for. I think the whole heritage aspect of it might be something you don't see as much, but
Oh, yeah, no,
we're
Yeah.
we're
think it's a
trying
great
to
idea.
create a carrot for people wanting to designate their properties.
I was thinking of the one where the old Iron Horse used to be. So like knowing that they're going to be building something there. So it's come to us before, we sent it back to them basically, because plans didn't really include what they were going to be doing with the old train station. So like if they, like could this potentially be something that they could take advantage of as far as like, if they did something, they would
Yes.
incorporate that into their development?
Yeah, no,
It's
it
not
would.
the entire building like some of these other ones, but it's like part of their,
Well, the building's
of the
on the
area.
site, right? So
Yeah,
it's
right.
how they reuse the train station.
Yeah.
And it's like from, again, purely a hypothetical,
yeah,
right?
no, yeah.
If the proposal is we're going to build a 5 or 10-story building and we'll figure out this old building later on, they don't get funding through this program until the property is designated.
Okay.
So that gives them maybe time to plan out what they want. Do they feel, whether or not it's a train
Is it
station,
worth
could
it
be
or not?
an old school, right?
Yeah.
Could be a mansion on one of our arterial streets that is currently commercial,
Right.
but it has a big property where you could fit something else there. If I'm building, in the case of the train station, is it commercial or is it amenity space for the residents? You may want to have a sense of the market or how much commercial space is really, in need before you make that call, but you can still work towards adaptive reuse as you plan part of the development, right? So yes, it could work in that case. It could work in a church conversion or a school conversion. It could work and I am building commercial offices on a main street, but there's a very ornate home there that has been converted. Okay, well, instead of demolishing that for one giant new office building, go ahead, build a modern addition or wing, retain the old character home as office space like it is today. As long as that property value increases, that's what this grant style requires.
Right.
It needs the taxes to go up because that's the equivalent. But yes, all those situations could work.
Thank you. Can I have a mover and a seconder for this motion on the floor then? Sandra and, it's Counselor Sandma. I know, you had your first comment too. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to say how thrilled I am to see this, and I think that it's a great suggestion brought forward by staff to really encourage adaptive reuse. So I'm really happy to see this today.
Thank you. Anyone else with a comment? I have to just echo what you say. Yeah, exactly. That's it. Hopefully this encourages more of that. And that's Sandy. Okay. And so we'll put this on the floor then. All in favor of recommendation and comments? Perfect. And opposed? Good. Passed. Thank you. Carried. Move on. Okay, item 5, consent items. We will now move to consent items. I think we have 5.1, the minutes. Can I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes from our last meeting of October 7th? Counselor Sullivan? Dan? Thank you. Were there any discussion, errors, omissions? Anybody see anything? No, it's all good. Okay, all in favor? Accepting the minutes and opposed? Seeing none, carried. Resolutions, there are no resolutions, no notices of motions. And before we conclude this meeting, I'll ask the clerk to provide an update on the current vacancies in the Heritage Committee. Explain the application process, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, the Heritage Committee currently has 5 vacancies, or will have 5 vacancies after some expiries. The last day to apply for these vacancies is November 1st. So anybody, I believe this Friday. If anybody is interested, please visit Brantford.ca, our city website, for more information, or contact the city clerk's office at clerks@brantford.ca. The application is online, and there's basically an online form that is required to fill out. Some additional information needs to be attached or uploaded to the form. It's pretty self-explanatory, but if there's any doubt or any further questions, feel free to contact the clerk's office. Again, there are 5 vacancies that we are looking to fill. As of November 1st, it's the deadline for those submissions. Thanks.
Thank you. And on that note too, I must say that like I'm on a couple of committees, and this is probably one of the ones that we meet regularly. We actually do things and love working with staff on this committee too. So I would encourage everybody to reapply and come back on. Hey, Sandra. Oh, you're muted.
Yep. Okay, do we all know, like, everyone's term is up at that time, or is it a staggered term?
Through the chair, the terms expire staggered. We can take it offline, Member Mikuchi, and I can confirm with you when is your expiry date. But yes, it is a staggered for all committee members.
Okay, if you could do that.
Yep.
Okay. And anything else? This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.